VR Chat, the next frontier. These are the experiences from Gunters' universe. His continuing mission? To seek out and connect with VR devs and passionate enthusiasts. To discuss theories, beliefs, and rhetoric of all kind. And to boldly go where no show has ever gone before.
Hello and welcome to Gunters' Universe, everyone. This is the one and only live talk show broadcasting from the metaverse. Gunters' Universe goes live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. You can download VR Chat, vrchat.net/download to join us. And you can also watch via the Hitbox stream, which is hitbox.tv/Gunter444. Tonight I have the pleasure of talking to a panel of great people that have started real-life meetups and run them regularly. To my right, I have Karl Krantz, who is the organizer for SVVR. How are you doing, Karl?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's good to see you in the metaverse, and I'm digging your custom avatar that Justin Moravitz built, which he also put in his game Pulsar Arena for the gear, so that's sweet.
I don't think I have fireballs here, but play Pulsar Arena.
Oh, we got to get those. There's other folks with their custom avatars that do similar things. So Justin was on the show last week talking about Vanguard and Proton Pulse and that sort of thing, and so he was in here really loving a lot of the custom stuff and is probably going to build some stuff or hang out a bit. So that's pretty sweet.
Awesome.
And next up we have Peter Stol-meier. Am I getting your last name right here? Stol-meier, who is one of the organizers at the Atlanta VR Meetup, along with Annie Eaton, who is not here tonight, but Peter's here. And Peter, we met each other, a couple months ago when I was in the Atlanta area. There was this cool place that you were hosting the meetup called Battle and Brew. It's just the coolest nerd place with a bunch of, PC systems and consoles and coolness. And yeah, that was great. So it was great to meet you then, and welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
And I believe you have a meetup coming up soon?
Yes, we do, at the Battle and Brew. We've got a couple of cool things happening. The CCP, the creators of eValkyrie, are going to be there showing eValkyrie. I can only imagine they're going to show it on a headset I haven't seen yet. And we've got a couple of local devs, which we could talk about later if there's time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're totally excited to have them. That's this Sunday in Atlanta at the Battle and Brew.
I was very bummed that I moved my RV back to South Florida just in time not to be able to go to that meetup. So wah for me, but really stoked that you guys have that hooked up.
Yeah, totally.
And next we have Shawn, who is one of the developers with Convrge and has ran the Nashville meetup for a while now. And I'm curious, Shawn, how you're doing, and also, we know that you've moved, and so how does that change the meetup situation?
Yeah, so I handed off a lot of the kind of primary organizer things to another guy, Keith, in Nashville, who has been there from the beginning, really great guy. But I'm staying on for probably the next few months or so just to help with the transition, and I can still from a distance help book traveling speakers and find places in Nashville for them to meet up because we don't have a steady spot, so just stuff like that.
Right on, gotcha. So yeah, I can't wait to talk to you more about your involvement with meetups and how that whole history's been for you.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
And directly in front of me, we have two people that are inhabiting one avatar. We have Cosmo. Right. Yep, Cosmo and Johnny from VR LA. How are you folks doing?
We're doing fantastic. When we get together, we turn into a girl.
Mind melded right now.
Well, you look beautiful, if I do say.
Thank you, boy.
Fusion.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Jeff, who is one of the organizers at the Boston VR Meetup. How are you doing, Jeff?
Great.
Really appreciate you coming on the show. I know you've hung out here on Gunters' Universe set before, and always love finding out more about the people and what they do here, and then it's great to be able to put this together.
Very happy to be at the table. Jeffrey
Yeah.
here and I are going to do a VR panel in real life on Thursday night, so this will be good practice.
Oh, nice, nice. And yeah, Jeffrey, you're also one of the organizers as well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Very, very cool. And you've been here to Gunters Universe before, or is this your first time?
First time ever.
Oh, nice, nice.
Oh, yeah. Straight into the frying pan or fire or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. Is this your first social VR experience, or have you had those before?
I did a little bit of the online, not with an Oculus before. Most of my VR experience has been, with caves and in big laboratories, that sort of thing.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
But
So what's your first impression of all this right now?
the emotional impact of being in a body, is quite a lot more than I expected. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I read about it in some research that once you buy into your avatar, you'll sweat when it's threatened, that sort of thing.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
We're not here to try that. But we digress.
Well, it's great to have you. And finally, we have my co-host, Mr. Whiskers. How are you doing, sir? Are you ready for another episode of Gunters Universe, my friend? All right, let's do this then. Okay, so I guess we'll just kind of go around the table and talk about a few things. I kind of want to just talk with the basics and kind of the beginning, how you guys started things, why you started up these meetups. So Karl, yeah, it's been a while, a couple years since you started the SVVR meetup. I got the pleasure of attending that, 9 months ago, right before Oculus Connect. What a fantastic, cool place to meet people and see cool stuff. Why did you decide to start the meetup?
Well, I moved out to California a couple of years ago because of VR and virtual worlds. I knew the stuff was about to take off, and I was in an adjacent industry, but not quite virtual reality. So I came out here, and I had been going to meetups in New York, not VR meetups, just other meetups, tech meetups, and I just assumed that there would be a VR meetup in Silicon Valley, and there wasn't.
Right.
And I met a few people online who were also fans, like Cymatic Bruce, and we just, Bruce talked about getting 3 or 4 people together in a library, and I was like, hey, Bruce, do you mind if I just take that idea and just go big with it? And
cool,
so we started SVVR Meetup, it was over 2 years ago now, just because we wanted to talk about VR, and we timed it just when the first DK1 shipped so that people could have something to try, because it's all about the demo experience, that in-person experience. And yeah, we were afraid. Our first meetup we held at the Computer History Museum because that's where the very first HMD is, Ivan Sutherland's Sword of Damocles. And we wanted a small room. We thought maybe if only 4 or 5 people come, it'll look weird. We didn't want too big of a room, but we got a room that we thought would be good for 20 people. And then that first night we had 72 people, including Nate Mitchell from Oculus, who brought Eve Valkyrie actually.
Oh wow, that's pretty sweet.
Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It was not Eve Valkyrie. It was the mech one. I have that mixed up.
Oh yeah, that was supposed to be a thing, and it never happened. It was supposed to come with the Rift. What is it?
We started. I reached out to a bunch of companies. Most of them ignored us, but a few companies, Sixth Sense and Oculus and Matterport, a few companies in this space, sent their people, brought demos. We had people like Arn came all the way up from, where's he at, Reno or something. Yeah, people came from really far for that very first meetup, and it just grew from there. That was like 72 people, and that was our smallest event ever. And now I think if we had the space for it, we could be like 500 people every month. We're still doing it every month. We've missed 1 or 2 months here and there just because scheduling conflicts with other events. But we still do it just about every month.
When I was there, it was at a sort of hacker place. It was sort of warehousey in the room that we were at.
Yeah, Hacker Dojo. That's where
Hackerdoja, yeah.
That's where most of our events are, although lately we've kind of outgrown that, and it's also really hot in the summer. Their AC can't hold up. So our last one was on the roof of Highland Capital Ventures in Palo Alto, outdoors, so it was cool. I think our next one is going to be at Samsung, so we try to go to, we go where the AC is now until it gets cooler.
That's so cool. Awesome. So let's turn things, keep things moving and talk to Peter a little bit. What was your inspiration for starting the meetup, and just tell us a little bit about that process?
Well, for the actual inspiration, SVVR was huge, of course. I was listening to Reverend Kyle's podcast, and he was mentioning that it's a good way to get people enthused. And when I pitched it over to Annie, she started booking it for us. Our goal with doing it in Atlanta is eventually these companies have to come to the East Coast, and we want them to go, well, we could go to New York, but everybody and their mom knows what VR is in Atlanta. That is literally our dream. So we do these meetups every other month, and then we do every convention we can get to. We get a panel, and we talk about VR there and do some demos there, just to get the word out in Atlanta. That's our goal.
And how long have you been running the meetup?
The day that the DK2 shipped. They didn't ship it to us, but that day we were doing DK1 demos over at the Battle and Brew. Oh, that's right. It was a year ago from right now, because when we do our new one on Sunday, it's going to be the 1 year anniversary. So yeah, exactly 1 year.
Congrats.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, my birthday is this month, so I've always been blessed to get my DK1 and DK2 in the month of July, and it's like Christmas in July for me.
Yeah, my birthday happens to be a very popular day to release games. October 26th, stuff like the Orange Box, like any big game that comes out in October, generally releases on my birthday.
Nice.
When's your birthday, Gunter?
It was this last Sunday, so 2 days ago, the 19th.
Hey, happy birthday.
Happy
birthday.
Yeah.
Sean's a July birthday as well.
Yeah, July 10th, Tesla's birthday.
Yep, so is Adam, right over there, yep. That's his birthday as well.
McFly went back in time on my birthday, at least I can claim that fame.
And there was a bunch of others, including Caleb, that's sitting in the audience in front of me, so happy birthday to all of us. So, Shawn, you started the Nashville VR meetup. Same questions. What was the inspiration, and tell me a little bit about starting that up?
Yeah, so there was pretty much no VR community. I think it's the same as most of these other guys. It's like I went on meetup.com, and I was just like, where are the VR nerds? And I was like, oh, they're not here. So I think I had just gotten my DK2, so we started in, maybe it was late July or August of last year, so we're coming up on a year as well. And yeah, I had the DK2 and some other gear, and I knew one other guy in town, and I was like, well, we need to get the word out, right? We need to start meeting up and sharing the hardware and getting anyone interested around here and what's going on. So we just, I scheduled it.
Don't mind that, keep talking.
Yeah, we had maybe, I guess for the first one we had 20 or 25 people show up. It's way different than Karl's story in that 75 is probably the most people we've ever had. So drastically different story being in Nashville. It's not a huge tech town, so we're actually approaching 400 people now, which is I would have never expected in a year that we would have gotten 400, but you show up to a few Comic Cons and things like that, and everyone in the area who's a nerd, wants to try it, and then they're like, oh my god, I can show up once a month and try all these demos? That's incredible. So that's kind of how we started.
Awesome.
Yeah, 400, wow. I mean, I remember going to the Nashville convention for the web stuff I do, and I remember meeting a lot of people from Nashville, and apparently there's a lot of great fiber optic and internet out there. And so it kind of has been a place for people to flock to in technology.
Yeah, they just landed one of the Google hubs, so they're going to be getting Google Fiber in Nashville coming up here pretty soon. Pretty stoked about that.
Jealous.
Yeah, right before I moved, of course, so now we're in Seattle, where apparently there's no Google Fiber, or the fiber that's here is very expensive.
Atlanta
that's really smart of that city. Okay, thanks. And let's slide over to Cosmo and Johnny. Yeah, same stuff. What was your inspiration? When did you start things, and why?
So Cosmo was really the one of us who had the foresight to set it up. I'll let him answer.
Yeah, so we started VRLA about a year and a half ago. I was just really excited about VR and reading about Valve's technology, their prototype back in the day. Really inspired me to start reading more on the Oculus subreddit, and I was listening to a podcast, the RevVR podcast, and they were talking about meetups, and looked online for something in Los Angeles, and there's nothing there, and I just really wanted to meet and talk to other people that were as excited about virtual reality as I was, and so 2 days after I listened to that podcast, I started VRLA and met a lot of incredible people along the way that have been able to help grow what we've been doing from like a 150 person event to over 2,000.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah,
I
big
remember,
kudos to Reverend Kyle, by the way. Seems that he's the origin of like half of these meetups.
Yes,
Yeah, we all remember
It
that.
all
podcast.
starts with the Reverend.
Thank you,
Cheers.
guys. Thank you.
So up to 2,000 people, and you guys are doing an expo or just got one's coming up. I remember at Oculus Connect I got to attend the Proto Awards, which you guys are doing again this year. So yeah, you guys are really hitting it big, and it's pretty great to see and hear about.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we're working our asses off, and we've got a team of about 6-7 people now on our sort of core staff, and I should mention John Root and Jessica Ward and Adam Levin and James Berrien as well, who are all very integral to it, and our buddy Christian, who's now part of it. It's anybody who does this knows it's a huge amount of work.
Great. And Jeff Bale is up next. He's with one of the organizers at the Boston VR Meetup. How are you doing?
Great. I
Tell me.
can't take any credit for starting it. That was actually done by our founder, Jim Cicino. And I did go to the very first meetup. That was in January of 2014. I think a lot of these guys got together when Oculus came to town, which I think was October 2013. And somehow, although at that time I had my DK1, I was already integrating it with my company software, I was already a VR developer, somehow I didn't hear about them coming. It just wasn't even on my radar. Totally missed it. But I certainly did make the first VR meetup. And back then we were just maybe 30, 40 people hanging out, showing our demos. And we've really grown since then. Now we're at 1,200 people. And we're really doing great. I think about October or so last year, we really started getting some momentum once Jaunt came out, and then they told Altspace, and Altspace came out, and then we're really kind of flowing now. And it's a great group. Our primary goal really is to just allow local people to try out VR before it's in every Best Buy and widely commercially available. And we got a wide variety of people. Probably like 30 or 40% developers maybe. A lot of people are just there kicking the tires, just want to try out VR and then never come back. But a lot of people who are just really interested and passionate about it and come out each and every time and really enjoying the demos and stuff. So that's our primary goal. And then like Peter was saying, our secondary goal is just to promote Boston as a great place for VR development. Not only do we have excellent developers, you guys might know John O'Forbes from Defective Studios. He's working on VRMT. He's been on a lot of the podcasts. We got Michael Shank working on Lost Loot. We got one of our other co-founders, Andy Sen, working on Tribe VR. And we got a guy doing a VR input glove called the Genji Glove. There's just a lot of talent in both software and hardware in Boston. We got a lot of schools, obviously. We have MIT and Harvard, and we had a meetup at Worcester Polytechnic that has an awesome VR lab. Plenty of medical, too, which I'm really, really excited about. We have the medical schools, the teaching hospitals, the research labs. All that stuff is here. We got some of the best healthcare in the world, and I think Boston's going to be a great place for medical VR.
Well, that's a lot. Yeah, I actually heard a good bit about what's going on in Boston through my friend Bob, a.k.a. Cause and Effects, who also is one of the co-hosts of Left-Handed VR podcast. And I bring him up because I want to thank him for running the cameras tonight. His brother Kenny is my Also another, he helps me with production here and runs camera, but he's on vacation, so I can't thank Bob enough. He goes to the Boston meetup. I'm sure you guys know each other.
Of course. We've had both of the brothers at the meetup, and they've both brought out their rigs and shown demos for us, and definitely appreciate their help, and also all the kind words that they say about us on the Left-Handed VR podcast. Although usually Bob has all these things he wants to talk about from the last one, and then one of his co-hosts will interrupt him and start complaining about how the stem hasn't shipped yet or something else is going on. But he usually gets everything out.
It's I'm sure that isn't Jason.
Thanks.
He's
Yep.
never.
You know what? I wasn't gonna name names, but yeah.
That's actually funny. Jason was on episode 7 with Lun and Everyday, and it was a 3-hour podcast. It turned into a show, and it was quite. I just let it go, and those folks had a lot to say. So, Jeffrey, you also one of the organizers at the Boston meetup. Tell me a little bit about your involvement there.
Yes, sir. I saw the first meetup in March of last year, and they were pretty small at the time. And it was just a romper room, where absolutely anybody could come and show what they were working on. And that was the absolute polar opposite of the academic world, which is where I was at the time, where everything's curated and so forth. And I got interested. A couple months later, I invited all my old friends to bring their gear in. Annette brought her inflatable dome. Mary brought a bunch of her friends. We had a big meetup with a lot of gear, and that started things really rolling. We started to get, like you said, jaunt and so forth. We got a huge boost from SVVR this year, thanks to Karl and people helping him. I spent 2 days on the demo floor inviting everybody I could to Boston and booked our speakers for the next 4 months. And
Nice.
that really has helped us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's helped to create the East Coast as a destination for companies who want to do a swing through Washington, New York, Boston, and so forth.
Right. Yeah, I'm always looking, interested in how, more conferences and meetups happening on the East Coast. I think it's a little bit slower, but yeah, we're seeing it, and I'm glad to have, a few of you here tonight to talk about that. Really awesome. And I'm just thinking it real quick. Bob, on cameras, make sure that your microphone's blinking, that it's muted. So I just have to
It's
remind him
blinking.
that he's, okay, great. Thank you. Okay, let's move through some more questions here. I'm actually interested in the expenses and revenue aspects of running a meetup. Do you guys make enough revenue to cover all the expenses, or what was it like in the beginning versus now with revenue? Is that an issue? I would hope you guys aren't putting all the money out yourselves and things like that. So I'm going to kind of go randomly around a little bit. Let's start with Shawn.
Sure. So I never wanted to charge anything in the early days just because I thought it would prohibit people from showing up. But we kept donations open, so we would have people, after the meetup kind of give money, and we would use that for, every now and then food and stuff like that. But I actually managed to get all of the spaces for free, which was pretty big for us. So I would approach all the co-working spaces in town, and I think everyone here as an organizer knows that it can sometimes be difficult to book a space, especially consistently. So my pitch was essentially to people like, listen, I'm going to have, 20 to 40 of the best nerds in town here. So if you're interested in promoting your space as a place where these people would want to come to freelance and just hang out as a destination, this is going to be an incredibly valuable thing for you to let us, do this once a month, because we're going to pull in all these people that are interested in the technology, and they're going to come to your space and say, oh, this is a cool spot. So that's kind of how. So besides that, we didn't have any really major expenses. We were just starting to look before I left at some more long-term sponsorships just to give us some operating cash, and we were looking at maybe a $1,000 or $2,000 sponsorship for the year for some different companies in Nashville. Nashville, and we would just, put their name on a banner wherever we went, and we would kind of promote them wherever we would go and show demos, and just getting their name associated with us, and they could show up before an event and give a little pitch on their business, just to recruit developers or be associated with kind of this emerging space is pretty valuable to a lot of people.
Excellent. Yeah, I think this is going to be great information for people that are starting up their meetups. How about you, Karl? What was the expense situation with SVVR and also the Expo? I mean, that's got to be a big deal, especially, now it's 2 years, those spaces you're talking about. I wonder how much is donated, and just I'm sure it's got to be kind of a overwhelming job. And what's it been like the last few years for you?
Yeah, so for the meetup, like Shawn, we didn't want to charge in the beginning, and I think we didn't for the first few meetups, but we pretty quickly figured out there's a problem when you do that, is that people RSVP, even if they don't intend to go, and then we wind up with a case where we have a meetup where we have room for 150 people, all the RSVP spots are taken, and then the night of the event, we have a wait list 300 people long, and only 70 people show up. So then we have all this extra space, all this wasted food, and hundreds of people that really wish they could have come. So eventually we started charging just $5. So that's where we're at now. Most of our events are $5, and that's really just to keep people from RSVPing and actually make sure they show up. It helped a lot. Our expenses are pretty low for our monthly events. We have a membership for the hacker space that we is our typical home. It's like 100 and something a month, and then we spend probably 400 or so on food and soda. So we come out just about break even or a little bit under for most of our monthly events. We don't ask for sponsorship for our monthly events typically, and that's because we also have this other thing, which is kind of a separate entity of the conference, SVVR conference and Expo. That we definitely do charge for. We charge attendees, we charge sponsors, and we charge exhibitors because we want that to be a sustainable business that will grow into the GDC of VR. That's really the direction we want to take this. So because of that, and because we do events every month, I actually feel bad asking sponsors, the same companies, will you sponsor this month? Will you sponsor next month? Again and again. We've done 20 or something, coming up on 30 of these events, in the next few months. So yeah, I don't like asking sponsorship for every month. That said, like you said, Shawn, there are sponsors that are willing to sponsor, and it's a lot easier to pitch it to them as an annual sponsorship, and you're just sponsoring everything for the year. If you do frequent events, it's a lot harder to do it on an event-by-event basis. The money's there, but yeah, we're not in this for the money. The meetups are really about building community. We try to keep that separate from the conference, which we do want to make into a profitable entity so it can grow and grow.
Yeah, excellent. And just a quick comment on the food there, SVVR meetup. That was really good food. I enjoyed partaking in that.
Yeah, I'd agree.
A nice spread. Yeah.
Our meetup food is pretty basic, but our conference food is really good, and that's by design because we really want it to be friendly for investors and biz dev executives and these decision makers, and those guys really appreciate good food.
Yes, I didn't get to attend that, but yeah, just the meetup was, I don't know, beyond meetups I've attended in the tech world, so I can't imagine what the conference food was like. I'm hungry now.
I can't take credit for that. That's all Nana, my partner. She's amazing. She's very food conscious. She always makes sure everyone is fed and happy.
Yeah, so I got the pleasure of meeting Nana and hanging out with you both for a while, and you guys were such, so sweet to me, and I really appreciate that, which I've expressed a bunch, but, always in debt for your help and friendship. Yeah, tell us a little bit about Nana and her involvement in the meetups and conference.
Yeah, so Nana's my partner. She's my partner in life and everything. She's my girlfriend. We've been together for over 10 years. So SVVR is kind of a family business. It's Nana and I. Bruce is involved as an MC at our regular events. He used to be more involved in the planning, although now he's full-time at AltSpace. So he's really focused on his full-time job at AltSpace at this point. So although he is still our official MC and he MCs everything, and he definitely helps out, where he can. But yeah, Nana is she takes care of all the logistics and getting food and making sure everyone's happy. She always works the door. Yeah, she's amazing. She does, I always say she does all the work and I just take the credit.
That's funny. Cool, thanks, Karl. And let's switch over to Johnny and Cosmo. And yeah, tell us about the whole revenue part of things, what it's been like. You know, do you charge? And then I want to ask about the expo as well.
Yeah, so we face sort of similar issues that Karl brought up. We and also I think Shawn. We started our first two meetups were free, and yeah, faced issues with people RSVPing and not showing up. We, you know, as our events have gotten more and more big, and the costs have increased, and you know, we cannot do the events without help from our sponsors.
And how has, you know, the challenge with the expo, getting those sponsors, and, you know, is that covering everything, or how is booking all of that stuff? I mean, I'm sure it's got to be quite the job if somebody wanted to, you know, create an expo on the East Coast. What would they be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge to, you know, raise the amount of money that we need to do the events well. But the cool thing is that a lot of the tech companies and VR companies that we, you know, exhibit are really excited about the space, and, you know, fortunately are you know, able to support the events that we put on.
Yeah, you guys are really in a great location.
Yeah, and that certainly helps as well. I mean, there's a lot of really great people and companies out here.
Cool, thanks.
I'll just chime in there if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Since you mentioned, you know, talking about other people who are talking about throwing expos. I don't know what you guys, your expenses are with VRLA, but as you get into the big expo territory, the numbers get crazy big and crazy scary. You know, we lost, like, you know, I've always been very open with the monetary side of this. We've lost over $30-something thousand on our first expo. And, you know, we had spent well over $100,000 on the event. The second expo, you know, the budget, the costs were in the $400,000 range. If you start to get a big real expo center, you have to deal with real unions and union labor, and, you know, you have to use preferred vendors that charge way more than they should, and the AV costs. It adds up fast, and it gets crazy. So, you know, when people complain about a ticket costing a couple $100, you know, it's kind of crazy because, you know, we're not getting rich off this. And I'm sure it's the same for you guys in VRLA. It's, you know, it's a ton of personal risk. You know,
Cosmo sold his Tesla just to do this.
I hope that's not true.
No, we're not getting rich down here either. I think we're very fortunate because of the location, like you guys said, in terms of just the interest from Hollywood. But yeah, what you just said really hits the nail on the head. I think unless you throw an event of this, until you throw an event of the kind of scale that we're trying to with these expos, it's like you don't realize just how nickel and dime it gets, and just how expensive everything is. I mean, we're headed to the convention center for the first time, and you know, it's a whole new set of rules, and it's tremendously expensive.
It is. And just, you had mentioned the food before. Our food for our conference was over $130 per person.
Jesus.
And that's because we did go a little higher end on the food, but even if we wanted to keep it lower, it still would have been about $100 per person, just because of unions and preferred vendors and all the weird, shady business deals that these large-scale venues have. You know, anyone, if you're under 1,000 people, it's a lot easier because you can kind of do things in creative places. But once you get over 1,000 people, there's really very few options as far as where you can throw an event of that size.
Well, the food was amazing, so we appreciate it.
Totally worth it.
So I'm going to pry a little bit more. I kind of not sure, but the whole financial side, like all the time, like you must work months and months and months on this. How do you have to have a full-time job and do that, or are you able to, after the first year, start making enough with the business that it is to at least pay yourself a little bit, or some gas money or something?
For SVVR, for me, I'm pretty much full-time on SVVR, although I'm not taking any salary from that. We did make a little money this year. And, I say a little, it's not enough to replace a salary. Although, honestly, most of that is going to recoup losses from last year.
Right.
So
right.
it's, and to some equipment costs and things that we just needed to get. Our PA is long overdue for an update and all these things like that, projectors and all this nonsense.
And I think it's got to be necessary, else you won't be able to do it. And I really want other people, especially on the East Coast, to be aware of this sort of challenges and what is possible. They may not start these things up if they don't realize that at least maybe in year 2 they'll start be able to get some of this money back. So if you can and you want to start it, put up maybe the money in the beginning. Is that kind of how it was for you guys, Cosmo and Johnny, or was it all driven by sponsors, or what did you guys have to sacrifice besides the Tesla?
I mean, for the past maybe 4 events, the only way we could put on the events is through sponsorship. Our first 2 were, we were very fortunate to have the, to get the spaces for free, and our costs were generally pretty low, but ever since I'd say our 3rd event about a year ago, it simply wouldn't be possible without the support from the companies that we work with.
And those sponsors bring responsibilities too. Like if you have sponsors and your event is not air conditioned, your sponsors are going to be pissed. So it really raises the bar.
Yeah, our 3rd event was kind of hot actually. It was like in the middle of the summer and it was like 100
AC
degrees.
broke.
Yeah, it was
Middle of the
kind of
valley.
crazy.
Oh, man.
It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, so once you start taking big money from sponsors, then suddenly, they expect a lot more, and you really got to up your game.
Yeah, that's a great point that Karl made. I mean, sort of the, bringing value to the sponsors is a tremendous responsibility. So the whole thing is nerve-wracking, because you want everybody to walk away happy. And, like Cosmo said, we can't do it without the money, and each individual sponsor may have different needs.
Yeah, in the past I've done small events with companies I've worked with, and they've been always hard, and there's always shit that goes wrong. So hats off to you guys, all the people doing meetups, but especially those big expos. Super valuable for people.
Thank you.
This is interesting because we've been talking with Greenbaum and DJ, who organize New York VR, and between us we have the numbers to launch an expo if we really wanted to, but we just kind of thinking, what's in it for us? It's a hard road, and it's got payoffs, but it has to be what you want to do.
It's a really hard job too. It's the kind of thing where those last 3 months right before the event, you don't sleep, nothing else except the event. It's the event, and and you need a big team. I mean, we did the SVVR Expo with really basically 2 people, which was way too few people, and we killed ourselves. You need a much bigger team. I would recommend to anyone. I talked to a lot of people who threw conferences that started as small conferences to kind of get a feel for this, and the general rule of thumb is that you don't make money until year 3. So until year 3, you're going to be losing money. If you're prepared for that, and if you're careful, you can kind of mitigate those losses a little bit, but it's still, it's a tough road. It's a tough job.
I was at your first expo, and I saw you. You were at the table, checking people in. You clearly looked a little tired. Do you get to have fun at the expos, or are you just working the whole time? Do you get to enjoy yourself?
It's fun because, other people are having fun, and, we helped make that happen, and that's fun, and that's very rewarding. But at the event, I don't get to try any VR at any of especially our bigger events. I never get to try things. I barely get to talk to anyone.
Yeah, if you're thinking about starting a VR meetup, maybe you guys can relate. You better be committed to never, ever doing VR at your meetup.
Yeah, I always say if you come to an SVVR on the 3rd try, I'll get to try your demo if you stay late.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really as exaggerated as I'm saying, but, you're so focused on making sure things go well that it's hard to focus on anything else.
Yeah, and things break. So I imagine, you're the one that's got to deal with that.
Right. And then also if you're the event host, for us, we have a very small team. So if the PA system or the YouTube stream, our YouTube stream is always kind of terrible. And that's because I'm kind of doing it while 30 people are trying to talk to me. people just want to talk to you because you're running the event, and they want to, they want to share what they're doing, and they want to hear your thoughts and this and that. But you're also trying to, get the PA levels right and the microphones, and you need help. That's what I'm saying. Be better than I am at getting help.
So, Jeff, at Boston VR, what has been your sponsorship revenue situation? And then, let's talk a little more about expos and obviously you guys thought about that in your area, but it's obviously a big undertaking. Just share what what comes to mind around that.
So expos are terrifying. I agree with Karl. I've done a lot of trade shows over the years outside of VR, and I saw once the power bill for a 30 by 30 booth, and I looked at it and I'm like, that's more than I pay to power my house for a year or two. It's scary, some of that money. We're a small meetup, although we do have 1,200 members. Our venue fits about 170, so we're not at any sort of dangerous financial situation at all. Our costs are very, very low, mainly because our venue is free. We're very, very lucky to have the Cambridge Innovation Center, which is a great startup incubator, where actually a couple of our members have brought their VR startups, which is probably some of the reasons why they're interested in having us there. They give us a space for free. And not only that, Jeffrey was able to get them to give us the last Wednesday of the month throughout the whole year, which makes it really easy to plan and offer presenters and sponsors a variety of dates to choose from. It just makes it a lot easier. And as far as donations go, I do like a little mini presentation each time just for like 15 minutes just to introduce all the demos for that evening and stuff. And I put up a slide saying, hey, Meetup isn't free and we appreciate your contributions. And thankfully, people like Bob up there, if I had a connect, I would raise up my arm and point at him up there. He chipped in. So, we get $25 here, $10 there, and it adds up. And Meetup is about $180 a year for a meetup of our size. We have 1,200 people. I think it's cheaper if you have a smaller amount of people, but that's totally covered. And other than that, we're paying for name tags and Sharpies and other various things we need at the meetup, some tape to tape down the wires and that kind of stuff. But we don't have that many expenses. So if you are thinking about starting a meetup, don't by any means get scared off by any of the scary stuff we're talking about. Go out to the hacker spaces, go out to the startup incubators and the accelerators, whatever tech places you have in your city, and just go talk to them. Maybe before you do that, gather together some people who are like-minded and, have some DK2s and some stuff to show, just to show them that you have like a collection of people that are interested. But go for it. There's not a lot of financial responsibility just jumping into Meetup. Meetup, I think, could do a lot more to alleviate some of these problems for meetups of our size. I don't know why they charge so much money. I mean, it's kind of like Facebook, right? They're mining all our personal information and our personal connections, and they're making all sorts of money off that like Facebook does, but Facebook is free. So why Meetup thinks they can charge so much money for a service which honestly really isn't that great?
They really have a lot to do there.
They do. And
sorry to jump in, but yeah, you hit a sore subject for me. Meetup can do a lot better.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, this is just simple little bugs that I've reported over and over. They just haven't fixed, and I'm an organizer. I'm paying you, every 6 months, fix these little bugs. They're not a big deal, but moreover, they could do some bigger and better things to solve some of these RSVP issues. I mean, how hard would it be for them to, make people pay a small amount, maybe $1 or $5 or whatever, but we really want our meetups to be free. They've always been free. I think it brings a lot of people in, and it just kind of, it's really nice to have it free, but just chip in $5 and then have like a little QR code that you print out and you put up at your meetup, and anyone who actually shows up there physically takes their phone, scans in the QR code, and gets their money back. I mean, it seems like that would be so easy for them to set up, and it would really take care of a lot of these RSVP problems. But we've actually done pretty good. Just, as soon as the event fills up, we send out an email saying, hey, it's filled up. If you're not coming, change your RSVP. And then, maybe a day or two before the event, we'll send out another one saying, hey, we got another great event coming up next month. If you can't make this one, just take off your RSVP. And we've done pretty good with that. I think the only one that really got crazy was the one we did with Harmonix, because everyone wanted to see the music visualizers and all the stuff that they've been working on that they haven't really been showing. We also had Sensomotoric showing eye tracking at that one, which is pretty unusual. So that one got really, really jammed. But we haven't really had that many problems.
we
I'll notice the RSVP problem does seem to get worse over time, though. It's not the number of people that RSVP, but it's a function of the number of people in your group.
Interesting. I think we get about 100 and 60 or 70 RSVPs that we set at the limit, and we get about 120 people, 110 at each meetup, and that's enough to really fill the room. Before the CIC gave us this sweet, monthly deal, we were able to get a different place every month or two, but all those venues were for about 100 to 150 people at most. And so we're at the size right now to where if we grow any bigger, we have to get into bigger spaces, which we then have to pay for. So instead, what we're starting to do is spread out and starting to have like smaller purpose secondary events during the month to kind of soak up the traffic. And we're going to try and continue to fly on the financial radar as long as we can, with our expenses being like a couple $100 a year. Oh, and we do hit up our sponsors for pizza. We tell them it's optional.
So I think I should mention, actually, we were at Microsoft for a few meetups, and then we were also at another local hackerspace called Hack Reduce, and they were both great to us. And actually last Saturday, we sponsored a meetup with the Google Developers Group at the Google offices here in Boston, and we had a great time. We did a VR code lab in the morning and then a Gear VR code lab in the afternoon, and that was great. So if you got large tech companies that have big spaces in your area, reach out. Even if they're not in any way in VR like Google is, even if it's something else, they may have an interest or they may want to get in. So it could be a good way for them to raise attention about their own VR plans.
Autodesk asked us to have a meetup at their headquarters, but we turned them down because the CIC is so much more comfortable.
The one problem that we're seeing, like a lot of companies will approach us and say, hey, do you want to do a meetup at our space? And we say, oh, that sounds great, But eventually we always hit the same stumbling block of they want the event to end at 9 p.m. And we've learned that you just cannot end a VR meetup at 9 p.m. They want, or at least in Silicon Valley, they want to go until 10:30. If you try to end it at 9, we did that at LinkedIn once. People just hung out in the front of the building until 10:30 in the lobby, basically. Like the event has a time when it naturally wants to go until, and you can't mess with that.
Sure. I would stay all night long, and I think I did stay because I was hanging out with you folks at the SVVR meetup I went to and helped clean things up and continued talking and all of that. It's just, for me.
Yeah, we're usually there till at least midnight. We've been there till like 1 in the morning before, just still like, with the stragglers and cleaning up.
So I do want to push things over to Peter. We haven't heard from him about Atlanta VR. And what has been the revenue situation, sponsor situation? It's at Battle and Brew. Do you get support from them? Do they charge you? What's going on there?
Well, the first time we did it, they did, and rightfully so. They didn't know how it was going to be. They gave us a really good discount on a group area. Then obviously we filled the place, and they loved that. And immediately after, Battle and Brew shut down. They did that on purpose. They built a brand new location. It's a beautiful place, but it took like 8 or 9 months for them to finish. In the meantime, we went over to Dave & Buster's, and they also gave us a free deal. In fact, they were really good about it. They gave us discounts for anybody that showed up. They gave free games in their arcade for anybody that showed up, and we were able to get a pretty good draw from them. But something about Dave & Buster's didn't bring them as much as Battle and Brew. So as soon as Battle and Brew came back online, we were able to get back with them. They didn't charge us this time, and we've been there ever since. Thankfully, since they're such a kick-ass place, if you want food, you go to their front counter and order it. That also allows alcohol for people who imbibe. I don't personally. When it comes to actually running the show, Annie, myself, my wife, we all have a background in that kind of thing. I've been running anime cons and sci-fi cons for about 15 years now. Annie does it on the corporate side. Gabby does it on the anime side with me. So we knew how to organize the event. So expenses have been really low. We got to buy Meetup, which I agree is too much, but that's about it. ATL VR itself is its own development company. We've gotten a few clients from around Atlanta. So that's where we're invested in VR, and we do the Meetup just as a because we can. We know how. It's easy to set up, and we got a good relationship with both Battle and Brew and Dave and Buster's. If you have a Dave and Buster's near you, I recommend maybe giving them a call. It was a local decision, but I bet they'd be happy to hear from you.
That's great advice. Two things. One, I think your orientation's a bit messed up. Can you look forward and hit the R for recenter? Let's see if that helps things.
Sorry, you broke up. What was wrong?
I think your orientation's a bit off, so a little technical thing here. I may be breaking up. I just had a glitch. But if you could look all the way forward and hit the R key, and that'll work for any of you in the audience. Oh, that's the E key. Sorry to disrupt the show, but your head's turned the other way when we're talking.
I think it's just for your gunner. He's fine on the camera.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm looking at you,
that
Gunner, right now.
Stuff's happened. Yeah, so you're looking like the other way. So okay, cool. I'm glad it's for the camera, and I'm just the crazy guy. What about attendance? What's that been like?
The first attendance was great. We got well over 100 people. We were expecting like 75. We got, I want to say 160. I wish Annie was here. She'd be able to tell me. Battle and Brew was a little bit lower. We were still getting over 100, but not as many as we'd like. And then we maxed out what Battle and Brew could do last time. It was easily over 200. We also got invited to a maker fair last year. I mentioned those as well. We do it at conventions and stuff like that. At the maker fair, we were there all day. So we got... I put my own personal rift on like 600 faces during that weekend. But at the 600 Facer Fair last year, I mentioned those as well, over 200. Again, I wish Annie were here, but she's off at a birthday party.
Cool, and Dragon Con's coming up. Are you attending that? Any sort of VR thing going on there?
We put in a panel, but getting into Dragon Con is a difficult proposition. They don't want to hear from anybody. I don't know if they approved it. I know that AWA did. We just did the Southern Fried Gaming Expo. We got a couple of things coming up in Savannah, but Dragon Con itself, I don't know if they approved our panel. We have a really kick-ass panel that we do where we just kind of introduce people to VR, and we demo at the same time, and then if there's time or they give us a space, we'll demo after that as well, just to, get it on people's faces.
Sure. You said Southern Fried Gaming Expo?
Yeah, Southern Fried Gaming is
Sounds awesome.
arcade. It's an arcade and pinball expo. It was last month. It was amazing. And those guys were super nice. You would think they would be into analog since they're pinball fans. You would think they would really not be into VR, that they would be nice but say no. But everybody we spoke to, except for one person, was very into it. We ended up using the... Oh, I'm forgetting the name of it. The virtual arcade. I think it is VR arcade. We ended up showing that. So people could go in and choose any of their favorite arcade games and play, and the feedback was amazing. Again, I didn't think they'd like it at all, and they were totally in love with it.
Cool. All right, so some more questions, and we'll start with Cosmo. More advice for newbies would be great. What are some of the surprises that you've and challenges that you've faced with just the meetup, not the expo? If you were starting this all over again, is there something that you would change or do differently?
Line management is really difficult, especially when you have particular demos that people are really excited about, and that's been probably one of the biggest problems that we've faced since we started. We haven't.
Yeah, there's not really a whole lot of apps, affordable apps that would allow you to. I mean, this is a huge business opportunity. If somebody wants to jump on it, the line management app for these kind of events, like it's a real challenge. We're still sorting it out and hope to do a really great job with the next event. But yeah, as soon as there's demand, it's like, how do you balance it?
Yeah, and then another thing I should mention is like managing people's expectations is really important and something that like we're learning about along the way since we started. Just making sure that people are aware of what they'll be able to try and not be able to try, because in the past it's been somewhat unclear. So that's one of the things that we're continually improving.
Yeah, the line management thing's very, very interesting. I know when I've been at some of these conferences, there has been some frustrating moments with lines, and I mean that's pretty much what everybody's going to have to deal with. So that's really interesting and great advice. How about
Yeah, I
you,
mean, if
Jeff?
we could all raise our hands, I'm sure we've
Oh, go
been
ahead.
to like, E3 and had issues. E3 is so much fun, but holy crap, you're gonna really stand in a lot of lines, and no one likes it. So it's like, I think that's our ongoing challenge and aspiration is like, how can we make the lines as, sort of user friendly as possible.
I guess connected it kind of cool when you could RSVP your Crescent Bay demo via their app.
Yeah, that slot thing works really good. They're using Guidebook, by the way, if anyone's curious what app they're using for that.
Yeah, we've been looking at Guidebook too. It's just, there's expense attached to it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like $6,000 or something. We looked at using it for the conference, but we couldn't afford it.
Exactly.
I made a ticketing system. I had 3 identical laptops, so I made a quick, now serving 1 through whatever, and then we bought some tickets at the party store. That worked out pretty well, but we didn't have the manpower to really manage the line, so we don't use it too much anymore. If anybody wants a now serving thing, just let me know. I can release that.
I'll tell you one thing that I recommend not doing. We learned the hard way. We always, as a rule, try not to have demos going on while there are speakers. Usually our events are about half presentations and half demo time. But the first time we had Crescent Bay at an SVVR, we obviously they had 2 units. They can only get, it's like a 5-minute demo. We had like 300 and 400 people at the event. So we wound up with this giant line running through the middle of the presentation hall through the whole event. And it was very distracting because people in line were talking while there were presentations. Definitely don't have people just stand in line. We learned that the hard way. Some sort of number system, sign up, something like that works a lot better if you have a really high demand demo, like, a new Oculus or Sony demo.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice.
And also, you guys made a good point too on managing expectations. One thing that I've been afraid of over-promising and saying, hey, we're going to have the new Morpheus, and no one's tried it yet. So I often will surprise people at an SVVR. They like when we had the Sony Morpheus there. I think we were the first meetup they ever came to. We just didn't tell anyone they were coming. It was a surprise. Like they said, okay, and now we have a surprise for you during demo time, and it's the Sony team. They're here, and they have Morpheuses. Try it.
Yeah, I think I was there that night. That was amazing.
Yeah, you don't really need to use it as a promotional tool because, I think we're all seeing our events, we have no problem bringing people in. Our problems are more like finding venues that can hold all these people.
And surprises are good. That's cool.
Yeah, I always say under-promise and over-deliver.
Exactly. What about you, Jeff? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I don't know if this would work if there was Sony Morpheus in the room full of VR nerds that are all crawling over each other to get it. But, what I've done at some of our meetups, we also kind of stop the demos while the presentations are going. And before we stop for that, I just kind of get on the mic and say, hey, everyone, that's in line, look around, figure out who's next to you. And after the presentation, just come on back with honor system. And, that's worked out pretty well for us. Again, if you have a Crescent Bay sitting there or something, it may be kind of a different situation. We haven't run into that yet. But we, people are, respectful and honest about it. They'll just get back in line where they were, and it hasn't really been a problem. The scary part is when it gets to be, 9:30 at night and you still see that huge line, and, I'm sending a text message to the venue saying, hey, can we get a little more time, One thing I think that's critical is, put the start time as early as you can and encourage people to show up early. And when you see people hanging out early on in the night that are just kind of standing around eating pizza or whatever, encourage them to get in line, try out the demos, get on there, just to keep things rolling.
And what about you, Jeffrey? We're talking about challenges and hurdles and advice for newbies during this whole, facilitating a meetup. Oh, we're not hearing audio from you. I noticed that we had a couple disconnects.
Well, I can jump in with something I learned from Karl at I don't remember what podcast it was, but he said, always try and book 2 presenters because sooner or later one of them's not going to show up. And I think that is great advice. We most of the time for our most recent meetups have had 2. But you really kind of sweat it when you only have one, and it's 15 minutes before the event and they're not there yet. Or recently we had someone say, "Oh yeah, I'm flying in the day of the event. I should be there." And what happens if their plane gets delayed or they don't show up? It's really good to have two presenters. I mean.
Yeah, we've had 3 cancel. Like, we've had 3 scheduled and all 3 cancel that night. And then it's like, hey, Bruce, let's just make something up. Luckily, Bruce is, like, the master of improv, and so he can just, like, make a panel up, pull it out of his ass, and it's great.
Nice.
What about you, Shawn? Any thoughts for newbies?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing is if there's not a meetup in your town, just start one. It's really easy. I started mine in 10 minutes. I just went on to meetup.com, put it out there, and then, they do a little promotion for you. You, like, select some tags for your group that's like, gamers, VR, this and that, and then it pings everyone who's, mentioned any interest in those topics, and they'll get a little email saying, like, hey, there's a new group in your area. So we immediately had, like, I think it was like 40 or 50 people just join the group because, Meetup does their little promotion of it. So yeah, I think my number one advice is just start. Like, if you don't have one, even if it's, even if you're like in high school, just start one. See if you can get like, see if you can get the lunchroom at, at a certain time or whatever. So that's the main thing. Just getting people together in a room is, the first thing you need to do. And then another thing that I heard Karl say at one point, I think you told me this in person, Karl, you were like, make sure you have name tags. This was like a thing that you recommended. And I bought name tags.
We love the name
helps,
tags.
Yeah, it helps a lot in the beginning when you're just learning people. Like, I'm pretty bad with names, so like, the second meetup we had, I was like, oh shoot, like I remember phases really well, but I'm like, is like Jason or is your name Tom? So having name tags is really nice. That's a cool little tip. And then I'd say just as an organizer, your job is to just make everyone feel comfortable, be like wandering around, be making intros between people, because everyone's going to be talking to you, but not necessarily to each other. So you're like, oh yeah, so and so is also super interested in like car sims, go talk to him, and just you're essentially playing like, a kind of like a matchmaker role. So you want to connect people that should be getting together and just encouraging them to be social. And then we found that breaking up each meetup into like having a subject kind of helped direct people. So like, this is the meetup where we're going to talk about cinematic VR. This is the meetup where we're going to talk about this or that. And we usually talk in the beginning, I found, which is better, because if you get people started on demos, it's hard to get them to stop. So if they're like doing demos and you're like, hey everyone, pause here and we're going to start talking now, inevitably there's some guy in Elite Dangerous and he's like, yeah, 1 minute, and then like 15 minutes later he's forgotten. He's just back, in the cockpit. So we like to do talks up front. And I guess the last thing I've written down here while I was taking notes was find a space with lots of power. So one of the spaces that we booked at one point, it looked great, but I forgot to like find all the power outlets, and they didn't have very many. And it was just like we were daisy chaining a lot of power strips that night. So make sure you've got a place with lots of power.
Yeah, VRLA 3, we had the power blowout. I mean, it's very easy to underestimate how much power a bunch of PCs are going to pull down, and the capacity for the whole event to shut down as a result of it. It's absolutely happened. And I also think, I completely agree with what you were saying, Shawn, about like, just don't hesitate to jump in. It's not like, when we were starting VRLA, we didn't know how many people were going to show up. We were like maybe hoping, 50 people, maybe. We were just kind of crossing our fingers. We had no idea that the appetite was really there the way that it happened that first night. So I think, if you're thinking about starting it, just friggin' do it. It doesn't matter. 10 people will show up. It's just exciting to sort of get people together, like you're saying.
And something about VR people, like there's something different about people that are attracted to VR. They're very optimistic. They're the friendliest people. Like, everyone in our community is awesome. Everyone. Yeah. It's like, these are the friendliest people. So it's not, these are not hostile, angry, aggressive people who are going to be really jaded. People are really excited about this technology, and they're really excited about this community. It's just a really great type of person that comes to these meetups. So yeah, definitely don't be intimidated by it. I'm like totally introvert, very introverted person who, did not talk to a lot of people, and like the idea of getting 100 people in a room terrified me in the beginning, but it turned out these are like the nicest people. These are the friendliest people. I've made more friends doing this and had more fun doing this than I have like in my whole previous life.
Yeah, our lives have changed. To Karl's point, our lives have completely changed. I mean, I probably made more friends and met more people in the past just year and a half, 2 years now, than I have in like almost 10 years prior. It's this intense sort of barrage of positive people. It's really amazing.
And these are awesome people too. It's like, I sometimes forget when I go to other events that not all communities are as awesome as VR communities. It's like if I go to a non-VR event, I forget that like most people are actually pretty jaded and kind of jerks, but VR people are awesome.
Yeah, I'd say even if... Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Sorry. Can you hear me? Great.
Yeah, you sound great.
It's like kind of like a golden age of the community because everybody's new at it. There's there's people like me. I've been in VR for a long time, but the game is completely different. So it's everyone can play, and just opening up a room and telling everybody just bring your toys and let's all play together, that's how to get started. And the structure, I guess I'm going off the question you asked me before I blew up again, but the structure we put in place sort of evolved over time in response to people's requests. And it's working out, It's almost like we're not leading our group, we're kind of riding it, trying to hang on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really been in love with the VR community. I started facilitating meetups here in VR Chat, and it's the same thing. Look at these great people around us here. They're all fantastic. I've met so many developers and other personalities through VR Chat. We don't get to really expo and demo things, but we get to create friendships, and it's kind of what eventually got me connected with people to make me want to go out to SVVR, to make me want to go out to connect. So I have a love for this as well, and it's really helped me get the courage to, well, maybe I can do a little talk show or, participate in things or go out to connect or try to be that middle ground to say, hey, so-and-so, this other person does something similar and connect to them, or just encourage people to just say who they are and what they're about. Because a lot of times the VR folks here, they're introverted just like I'm, half introverted at times. And for them to be in this space gives them an opportunity to, speak their mind and learn how to kind of come out of that shell. So, yeah, I second a lot of that. It's been, the community is at that golden age, and I love it.
I would just like to make a final point that even for people, and like I come from some pretty small towns where I've like lived and gone to school typically or in the past, and I'd say it's almost more important for those places to have a community because, if you're in Boston or San Francisco, like it's not going to be that hard for you to find someone who's into tech and who's like willing to, get into VR with you. But if you're in, Nashville was a little difficult, and if you're in like some smaller towns, or maybe you're just at like a school where you don't know many people, like just start a meetup, just post something anywhere, just like, I don't know, put a flyer out and just say you'll meet in a coffee shop or something. But just, worst case scenario, you meet up and you end up making friends with like 2 or 3 people, and you just, grow it from there, because it's going to be really important for people to try this stuff. And if you can get like a core team of just a few buddies and you guys just set up at, the local public events and give people demos, that's going to be hugely valuable. And just the friendship with the people you're going to make too, even if it's only a few people, is hugely valuable.
Yeah, and I think also I would add to that what Shawn said, just like, it's an energy that's growing right now. It's not stopping. Like, it's actually only getting crazier, and you start to see like when you start to see people who like go 0 to 60, like they never tried DK1, they never tried DK2, they didn't do Crystal Cove or Crescent Bay, and their first experience is Vive, or their first experience is CV1, or their first experience is Morpheus, and the level of kind of reaction is through the roof. It's like taking people 10 years into the future, and I kind of feel like yeah, like you're saying, for those cities that you wouldn't expect a community to form, it could be a really, really big deal, you know.
It's the closest parallels to what's happening with the public is when other new communication media showed up, like the invention of radio, the invention of film. What's different about VR is that there's 60 years of science and engineering behind it. It was just too expensive for more than a few people to play with, and suddenly it's accessible to everybody. So so there's significant technical barriers that aren't there, or that the tools are diffusing so much more quickly than you had with a medium that is completely, absolutely new. So.
Yeah, and then you think about what's going to happen when you've got, you know, everyone's got the ability to afford one of these for their house, and they've cleared out their table in their living room, or everyone who's interested in that. And then you've also got, you know, places like the Void popping up all over the place, and you've got runaround VR, so then what is the role of the meetup, right? And it seems like, at least for now, you know, it's the one place where you get people together who all love the same thing in person, all to sort of be able to do it face to face and check out each other's stuff. And I don't know, I think there's an interesting kind of value to that for this sort of magic moment in time.
I think you raise a good point there. Like, what is the future of this once this technology is available for people to try in Best Buy and other places? You know, a big part of the meetups is, you know, it's the only place you can try VR, or it's the only place you can try the latest and greatest experience. I personally believe that's going to continue, because I think that the prototypes will always be a good year ahead of everything else. And if you look at what a year in VR has been over this past year, I think, you know, that level of improvement will continue, or at least I hope it does. But I'm curious, yeah, what do you guys think about that? I mean, is this like a limited time, and it's, you know, the meetups are going to go away once the stuff is out there and everyone has access, or is it only going to be more necessary?
It's interesting. We just had a discussion on our kind of little mailing list about this, and our founder says, aha, here it is, the inevitable fork, because we're talking about having developer-specific meetups, as Jeffrey was just saying. And looking down the road, I mean, it's going to splinter into AR and into video gaming and into architecture and medicine, and there'll probably be smaller, more focused meetups. And, you know, it's sad to think that, you know, what we have now isn't going to last that long. But when it does kind of break down and splinter out and fork off, that means we've won. That means VR has really taken off, and you don't need to have a VR-specific meetup anymore. So it's a little sad. And I think many people think about what Bruce said at your first SVVR Expo, you know, enjoy it because it's never going to be like this again. And I think those words really kind of stuck with a lot of people. I think about that a lot. And, you know, I can think back to our first meetup when we were 40 people in a room at Microsoft just showing demos. It's probably never going to be like that again. It hasn't, you know, since then. But maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think about that here in this space. Soon there'll be 1,000 people attending my show, and it just won't be the same. You know, the nice little community, you know, that my friends and family here, you know, in VR chat, and these social applications are going to explode. And they're just not going to be exactly the same thing, just like other social communities. But Peter, you're talking about, like, you know, we haven't seen Anime Con or any of those kind of things go away, and sort of think the same, right? Like, there's still going to be all this attention on VR, just like there is on other conventions and other technology.
Yeah, that's what I think, because anime cons and anime clubs and all of that are still a thing, even though anime is super mainstream now.
There will always be nerds who are cool, who want to get together and play with the cutting edge of stuff. That won't change. It's, at the moment, we've got it all. We're the center of the VR world. That will change. It'll grow beyond us, and that's cool.
I look forward to that day, like the day that Twitter switched over, when it went from, like, Leo Laporte being the #1 person on Twitter to, I don't know, Britney Spears or something. That was a good day.
Yeah, the interesting question for me is, at what point do the real-world meetups start to lose some of their value because the virtual meetups become increasingly intuitive and like realistic to attend,
Definitely.
that they're fulfilling most of those needs. And I mean, you still obviously need the real world meetups for a lot of things, but you know, the virtual ones are going to start to catch up.
Yeah, well, that will be VR is successful enough to actually use it for for most people.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, you always say you can't try a DK2 from a DK1, so there'll always be a a need for in-person experiences.
Yep, hardware.
That website that tried, remember, it showed what it looked like at the DK1 and then the DK2 and then the Crescent Bay.
Right.
You could just switch over the resolution.
Yeah, I think of, sorry, my Mega Man alarm or something's going off behind me. I think that will shut up in just a second. That Palmer's quote about distance will no longer, yes it is, that distance will no longer be an issue. You guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think he's right.
One of my concerns with is though, like, as this becomes a real industry, and this is one of the the driving forces behind the SVVR conference and Expo. As this becomes a real industry, we're going to start to get interest from these like cookie cutter conference companies and these big, the big event companies and these big, people that they look at trends and they throw events around trends, whatever's profitable. But VR is really special, I think, because it's very grassroots and bottom up. It's driven right now by people that are really passionate about it. I mean, nobody's making money yet, but we're just all like, putting everything in because we're so passionate about it. And I feel like the meetups almost have a kind of responsibility to stay in the game and to kind of keep that grassroots magic in the VR industry as it becomes a real industry. Or at least that's what we're pushing for with SVVR.
As long as a bunch of people can get together in a room and plug stuff in, we can do meetups. And virtual meetups.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of thoughts about virtual meetups, and Shawn, the point you bring up is definitely something I've thought about, and is virtual meetups going to take away? And I think there'll still be plenty of real-life meetups. I'm hoping, though, like people that don't live in those cities, those big cities, can attend virtually and share some of that experience. Of course, we could do our virtual meetups, which we do here in VR Chat. Convrge does as well. But what about connecting these things? I remember about a year ago, Rev Kyle was doing the Cincinnati-Dayton, Ohio meetup, and we were able to collaborate in VR Chat with that. There was a webcam in the room, and we could see them, and of course a whole bunch of new people that have never tried VR were coming through and meeting us in VR Chat, and that was quite a powerful experience. I'm always trying to find ways, and maybe it's because it's so early right now, but how can we connect VR Chat in these spaces with the actual real-life expos and meetups and do these sort of interactions? I think all of us VR nerds want this, but I guess we're having trouble figuring out how to do that.
Right, we tried that, Shawn. We tried that with the GDC VR mixer. We had a screen up where we had Convrge on the screen, and we've also done that with AltSpace at a couple of our meetups. The big problem preventing it from working, from my standpoint right now, is just the technical problem. There's no way to get a low latency stream in. The YouTube stream is delayed by about 60 seconds. It seems that the only ways to get HTML onto into Unity right now are using methods that have a high latency. There's not a low latency method of doing that, and there needs to be.
I guess I have some comments. I have a test build of this room, and I'm trying to build up the Hitbox streamers, which aren't really there yet. We used to have a lot more streamers with Cymatic Bruce's and Reverend Kyle's Sunday demo streams, but I'm hoping to get more of that here, even though it's kind of different because you want to be in VR to attend these things, which is definitely what I prefer, but I still want to give an option for that. We're streaming out to Hitbox right now, and it's really great having this camera system here where it's being live switched, which means right after there's no editing. It's all doing it live, and I can push it out. What I'm going to have is the Hitbox chat will be on another panel like the one we see behind us, which we normally show videos on. And so people can type in that chat. And Hitbox has 15 or second less delay. This is why Bruce and Kyle use that sort of thing so they could interact with the audience better. So I'm definitely interested in partnering or collaborating with any of you guys to help pioneer more of that and see what kind of experiences that we can provide. I think the community would really like that.
Count me in. I'd really like to try that.
Excellent.
This kind of mixing has been done in laboratory experiments with expensive equipment in the past, and it does work. It's just getting the gear is the hard part.
Hey, Gunter. Sorry, I gotta go. It's getting kind of late, but really appreciate being on the show.
Cosmo&Johnny, thank you so much. I think you even overextended yourself, so really appreciate your time.
Oh, dude, no worries. Thank you so much for having us, and sorry we got to jump early. I guess it's a virtual death.
Yeah, take care, guys. I did want to give you guys kudos for one thing we didn't get to touch on yet, but the VRLA meetups have the highest ratio of women out of any meetup I've seen in the VR space, and I don't know what you guys are doing there, but it's amazing.
It's our avatars.
It must be.
We just have a lot of pheromones that we spray in the air, and it attracts them. So.
No, what
there was some science to this.
Every girl there is just two dudes combined, obviously.
That's right.
They're actually just here to see Johnny.
Yeah, who can
It's all
blame them?
Johnny.
I think they're all after Cosmo.
You guys drive the girls crazy. All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Cool. Thanks so much.
You
We'll
guys are
see you
doing an
soon.
amazing job. Take care.
Thanks, man. Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much, and just great to meet all of the other meetups that we haven't met before, and amazing that we did it virtually.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, actually. I'm a little confused. Aren't we doing it right now? You guys are talking about it being in the future.
Yeah, we're not connecting the bridge. I mean, this is a full-on virtual meetup, which, we've been doing for a while, and it's sort of doing just a normal, hangout meetup is, this is where the show kind of was born from. I was already meeting so many people. It's like, why not make this a little more formal? And what I love the most is when enthusiasts get to meet developers, ask questions, and just other people. And also this right here, I kind of wanted to have time for you guys to ask each other questions, which, everything's just open table right now, but to get to meet each other, you might, realize, Shawn did this, and Peter, you might want to reach out to him, to ask those questions, or obviously you guys probably learned a few things from each other, so that's really a cool mission of mine, is to just connect people. It's in sort of the opening intro, is that's basically one of my missions and what I do. I did want to mention, Shawn, you had this really cool, I always forget the name of it, where your face was put on a robot body and screen at one of the conferences. So you did do a teleconference meetup thing.
Yeah,
Talk
it was
about
the
that, please.
Beam. It was one of the Beam robots. So this was the Augmented World Expo. I didn't actually know how they were going to do this. I thought I was just going to Skype in or something, and then the night before they sent me this link, and they're like, here's your personal robot, have fun. And I was like, oh, what? So I logged in, and yeah, you essentially have a Skype feed, except for it's on a robot that you're piloting. So you're using WASD keys to move this thing around the show floor and rotate it. It's got a speed setting, so you can speed it up or slow it down. And it was one of the coolest things I've experienced in terms of attending a conference remotely, because you actually, you'll see someone from across the room with your camera. I'm just sitting at home, eating a bowl of cereal, attending this conference, and I spot someone and I wheel over to them and I'm like, hey man, it's me, it's Shawn, and they're just like, oh my god, dude, what are you doing here? And immediately you get all these questions because you're a robot, and they're like, why is this happening? Why are you in a robot? But I like to say it was actually the easiest I've ever met or networked with people at any event, because everyone wants to come up to you. They're just like, dude, where are you in the world? And tell me about this robot, and whatever you're working on, I want to know about it, because you're immediately more interesting if you're a robot.
Can the robot wear an HMD?
So cool.
Yeah, someone did put the HMD up to the camera so I could see their demo, but it didn't work very well.
That's fantastic. I just like to see that.
That's really
We actually asked Beam about putting 360 cameras on the robots for the SVVR conference.
Ooh, yeah.
But they were concerned about that. Safety issues. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what safety issues, but
I want to wear an
that was-
Omni with it.
Oh my gosh, that'd be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was an incredible way to attend an event. Like after I came out of it, you kind of get that like, you know, walking out of a really good film sensation where you're just like, ooh, I was somewhere else for like an hour and a half in my brain, and like I'd kind of zoned out to the rest of the room around me. So, so really, yeah, it's a pretty immersive experience.
Super cool. I'm going to open things up to audience questions here in just a moment, and you know, if you guys have any questions for each other, please feel free just to push that out. And I don't really have many more questions. Just you know, really excited about this panel. I'm so interested in meetups. Thought about starting a meetup locally as well. I really just kind of spent all my time in the virtual meetup, and that's where I'm going to kind of stay, and hopefully I can encourage other people. If anybody is interested in starting meetups, wants to talk to these guys, they're all available. We'll do plugs here in a moment, but you can always reach me, and I'll plug you into whoever you're trying to get in contact that you've seen here, or things like that. So guntersuniverse.com is the best place to find my Skype, my email, that sort of stuff. So yeah, guys, any questions for each other, or any more thoughts on newbies starting things up?
Gunter, you should start a traveling meetup with your RV and just like create a meetup group and just call it like Gunter's Traveling VR Show, and just whatever city you're in. Just
yeah,
like
I've had
tweet
the
it out.
idea. Yeah, I need to get more I need donations for that, because it does cost money, and I don't have the bankroll. I've kind of I don't have that anymore, even though I didn't have much before. But yeah, I mean, it'd be great to hit up the small towns, you know, people that don't have it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the 10, 20 people places.
I would absolutely give you like $20 to $50 in a Kickstarter to just go around and spread VR gospel to like these towns. Just pull up in an RV and just be like, I'll be in this parking lot for 2 days. If you want to try VR, just come over here. Like I think that's a cause a lot of people on like our Oculus and all these other big spaces would get behind.
Yeah, I agree.
Gunter, you ought to start getting sponsors in on this. You know, for
yeah, absolutely. Monetizing the show is definitely, you know, of course, something I should do, and there's a donation option on the page, and sponsors to come, you know, finally getting the show up to a bit of a decent production. You know, camera system helps out a lot, and I'm up to episode 16, so it's definitely coming, and people have been telling me to do that, so absolutely a Kickstarter to do the traveling VR circus is really interesting. I do agree. I think people would get behind that, and I think it'd be a good mission. I'd feel good about that mission.
Yeah.
But then ILY would be able to track you down, so there is some danger involved.
You could also tie in with the school systems if you do that. Go to a high school or a middle school. They would eat it up.
Or, you know, I used to work for the Boys and Girls Club for 7 years as a tech director in a local organization. I could probably team up with them, and they're all over the country, and bring. I would love that kind of mission to bring it to children.
What do you think, Mr. Whiskers? Are you ready to show VR to the world?
Yeah, Mr. Whiskers. We can always ask Mr. Whiskers. All right, and yeah, so let's ask the audience. If you guys got any questions, just go ahead and you know, say your name and that you have a question, and then we'll go through them.
Patrick, I have a question.
Hey, what's up, Patrick?
Hey, so what are some other venues you would recommend besides the incubators and tech buildings?
For hosting, facilitating the event.
I've reached out to any sort of like science center or any sort of like learning center as a good bet. There's a few of those. Any sort of the like we house artists centers, like there's a bunch of these like collaborative art studios now, or maybe they're like a gallery and they open up a few times a week. Anything to do with the arts or the sciences is a pretty decent bet for like if they've got an extra room, they'll let you use it. Some people are meeting in public libraries. You can try your library and see if they've got a spot for you. What else? People just ask people who have jobs at like bigger places with bigger offices, oftentimes you can just find a friend who's like, yeah, you know, we have a big boardroom that we don't use that much, or like we've got all this extra office space, and I'll let you in at 5, and here's the keys to lock up. So anybody you know who's got a bigger office space, we've had a few people offer in Nashville they're like, yeah, you can take over our office space after 5 o'clock. That's a good place to go. The ones in Nashville were just a little too far away for us. Yeah, the co-working spaces.
You can also go to community centers, or churches will rent a pretty big space for a couple of $100s.
Oh, okay.
Community centers are a good option.
I like the
Don't forget
library one.
Dave and Buster's.
Yeah, there's a Dave and Buster's here.
Yeah,
let them know that it worked well in Atlanta. Seriously, drop that number, and then they can call the manager in Atlanta and hear that it did work out really well. So I'm pretty confident Dave and Buster's will work with you.
Yeah, they've invited us. We haven't done it yet, but they've invited us. They seem eager.
Yeah, if you've got any sort of a nerd bar, or like a space where nerds go, like we had one in Nashville called like Pixel or something, but if you're like, hey, I'm going to bring in 50 nerds and we're going to have VR and we're just going to be drawing people into your location and drinking and eating all night, like that's their dream.
Yep.
Yeah, bars are a good option as long as you're under a certain size, because, yeah, they just want people there who are going to buy drinks. And they'll give you the whole place on like a weeknight when they get in the business. They love it.
Do ours on Thursdays a lot.
I very much like going to meetups where there are bars. That's sweet.
I would also caution against certain companies because if the company has some sort of VR play, then their potential competitors will be nervous about it. Like if we're at Google, Oculus is not going to come. You know,
Right.
Sony's not going to bring their latest Morpheus prototype to Facebook. You know, they're a little weird. Those bigger companies are definitely a little less collaborative and more competitive.
That reminds me, you can often get space at a university or a school, like, you know, an empty classroom, particularly if you have student members. You can have like a student chapter that's able to invite anybody from the outside. But, you know, a little similar to a big company, you then have the branding of the university that kind of surrounds the group. So you have to be sensitive to that. It's much less of a problem, but, you know, you have to think.
Yeah, I think that's a great advice. If I was going to start one in my area, it was going to be at the state college nearby. That's where I know there's a decent amount of nerds and classes surrounded around technology happening.
Don't discount parking either. Yeah, you need parking.
If you can't get the video game club to talk to you, find somebody who's a member of that school, and congratulations, they're president of the VR club.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
What else we got?
I'd like to say that access to public transportation is also a big plus for locations.
That's something that Florida lacks heavily everywhere around Florida.
Everywhere in the southeast, man, they don't like it, so it's not much of a concern for us, because if you don't have a car, you're doomed.
You guys are all putting horrible ideas in my head.
Come to it. Where are you at? What state?
I am up in Canada on the East Coast, Nova Scotia.
Canadian meetup needs to happen.
I'm just thinking there's a bar, gaming bar, not too far from where I live, like 2 buses, maybe 1 bus away.
Perfect.
But then again, I'm like just a broke guy with 1 Oculus Rift.
That's enough.
That's all you
That's
need.
all you need.
Yep. Can you make it there every week? Yep. Can you afford the bus fare?
Oh,
once a month.
I have to take a bus. I got a bus pass just to get
Yeah,
to
once a
my
month.
job.
That's how I think it starts. Might change your life, dude.
What do you guys think about demoing DK1? I mean, I wouldn't even recommend using the DK1 these days.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? I personally, I think that'd be a hard question, but then I think of like Google Cardboard, and you know, then there's that probably would be interesting for people to try. What are your thoughts?
I say no on the DK1. I got some tips on the DK2 though. I put all of my cameras on sound poles, microphone poles. and I built a computer specifically for this. I call it an L-type. You can find it online. That way, the monitor is built into the computer, so you just plug it in the wall, you plug in the DK2, and you're good to go. I mention that now because it's that easy to set up a DK2. I really don't recommend using DK1s at all at this point. People will get nauseous, and they won't know why.
Yep.
One thing you keep in mind is a lot of people come to these meetups for their first VR experience, and they're really not often the best place to get the first VR experience, because a lot of times you'll have, a mix of amateur developers who are doing experimental things that are really probably not the best first experience. So it's good. We haven't done it yet, but we've dreamed of having an official SVVR demo setup that is like, a really good first-time demos where we could send people for their first time.
We have one, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm going to disagree, actually, about the DK1. If that's all you got, if all you have is a DK1, don't let that be what prevents you from starting a meetup. If that's all you have, bring the DK1, bring a Google Cardboard, bring whatever you got, and just see who you can get to show up and start the meetup. Just because you don't have, the latest HMD doesn't mean you shouldn't, at least just give it a try, because who knows, you may post this thing on Meetup, and then someone's going to show up with a DK2 or something else.
People will show up with equipment that you never dreamed of. I mean, that happens every time we do an event.
That was
it's definitely not ideal.
thinking.
I mean, people might get sick, and it's not that great an experience, but I think about when I first tried it, and I loved it, and I think other people will too. If they've never tried any other VR before, they're not going to know any different. And, it's not the best experience, but again, don't let that be the reason you don't start a meetup,
I have to agree. If people haven't seen it before, remember how excited we all were when it first came out.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
Yeah, once you upgrade, it's kind of hard to go back, but, getting there new, so... And I think, start it is the idea, and that hopefully will attract the other folks that will bring out their equipment.
You don't need equipment even to really start it. Just start it.
Yeah.
The people will come that are interested, and they have the equipment.
That's what I was thinking, which is why I was saying no on the DK1, because someone will show up with a DK2, and then you'll have one.
Cool. Let's hear some more questions. Don't be shy. Everybody's friendly here. Is anybody out there thinking of starting meetups? Not too many questions.
Or meetup, any stories around meetups would be interesting.
Yeah, who's that?
It's Adam J. Less of a question, more of a plea. I feel your guys' pain with the RSVPs when it comes to the meetups. I do a 3D printing meetup community in Boston, and actually the plea is for all you guys doing VR meetups, organizing it, and for all the people listening who do the same, please reach out to your local 3D printing meetup community as well. You might have some crossover members already, but I see a lot of crossover when it comes to talent and direction as far as the future. So that's pretty much always trying to put that out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a real tie-in with 3D printing and VR. I mean, they're kind of flip sides of the same, that same 3D-ifying of the world.
Yeah,
you need similar skill sets.
A real possibility of having a two-way street when it comes to VR and R. If you want to send something into VR, you scan it, and if you want to export something out, you 3D print it. And as far as both needing a killer app, I think that VR and 3D printing can help each other with content creation and usefulness all around.
I agree.
Good point.
Karl, going back to something that you had said, we wrote a program, I wrote it myself, called VR Selfie. It runs in Unity, and all it is a basic environment for you to explore 3D, and then a little drone comes out and takes a picture of you with a VR headset on. Because right now, it's not possible to have that avatar of you in the brand new VR headset, so I put that in there as well. If you need something like that, that's what I built it for. It's supposed to have an attendant that walks them through the process of VR for the very first time.
Wow, that's awesome. That sounds great. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, we submitted it to share, but I never actually heard anything back from them, and then I've been lazy, so I'll send it over to you direct.
Nice, I appreciate that.
All right, let's do some plugs here, and I want to plug VR chat a bit, and just really ask you guys, when you're out there doing the meetups or at the expos, or just talking to people, and tell them about VR chat, tell them about social VR, tell them that there are people in these places, even though they might not be here every single night of the week, but there are people like me and Shawn that you get in touch with to bring you into these places, bring them in, or come in here for a show, a meeting, I don't know, mess around. Just we on our end, we really need that since we're not in these physical places, and of course collaboration. Anyway, I'm here to bridge any connections, and I will work days on end to find ways to bring these people here into other real life meetups, and to hopefully then have cool experiences with people at your meetups, attending things in VR. And let's do plugs. Let's start to the left with the Boston VR guys. Jeffrey, how can people find you? Where would you like to point them? Sounds like your mic isn't working again.
No, that was human error. Come to the bostonvr.org. That's our website, and it'll link to our Twitter and our Google group, and of course meetup.com. Just search for Boston VR, and you'll find us. And from there, we'll have pointers to related events.
And I'm on Twitter @BaleVR. Please reach out if you want to just get in touch and talk about meetups or just about anything else VR. Nothing to plug except for Boston. We're a great place for VR. I guess we are still looking for a second exhibitor for our August 26th meetup. So if you want to come and present with Surreal, let us know.
Awesome, and that was @BaleVR, B-A-I-L.
That's it.
Cool. Yeah, definitely everybody should be reaching out if you're interested, or, all this stuff. You want to start one up, you want to find out if there's others, all that kind of stuff. How about you, Shawn?
Yeah, so if you're anywhere in the southeast, we're in Nashville, so feel free to drop by. We usually do one meetup a month. It's NashvilleVR.com, and essentially if you just Google anything Nashville virtual reality, we're going to be the only thing that pops up. And then if you want to get a hold of me personally for any meetup questions, I'm happy to, help give any little tips I can about starting a meetup, and any advice or anything like that. It's just Shawn, S-H-A-W-N, @convrge.co, CONVRGE.co.
Excellent. How about you, Peter?
Me personally, it's @WackoMedia on Twitter. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And if you do any search for ATLVR, Atlanta VR, we are the only game in town. So that's a great way to get us. If you go to atlvr.com, you can see our development company, what we're working on, and obviously the contact is there for my partner Annie as well. Shawn, real quick, do you know when you're going to do a meetup in October yet?
No, I don't think Keith has planned the next one out yet.
I happen to be there. I'm gonna try real hard to go to the Rift Tracks live viewing, and I would love to have 2 reasons to be in Nashville, so I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, cool.
And Karl.
Awesome. Well, SVVR meets every month. We're on Meetup, or svvr.com, where you can find out the latest. We may actually even have a meetup next week that hasn't been announced yet, because we're having a little delay getting their venue confirmed. But we meet all the time. There's always an SVVR. If you're coming to the Bay Area, look us up and see if a meetup is coincides with your visit. We're always full, but just email me if you're a core member of the community. We'll find room for you. We always find room for the people that really need to be there. And the SVVR conference and expo will be in April or May. We don't have the final date, but we're going to go even bigger than we were this past year. We had 1,400 people for 2 days. We're looking at potentially 3 days this time, and we'll definitely be a lot bigger. We'll be in a real expo center, still figuring out which one, but April or May should be the VR event of the year. That's what we're shooting for. And in general, I'm just Karl at svvr.com. If you email me and I don't respond, please email me again. I apologize. I've hit some critical mass where it's physically impossible for me to reply to all the emails I get, and I'm not being a jerk. I'm just completely buried and overwhelmed. But I'm always happy to help where I can, so please reach out.
Like Raptar's Hammer, I swear I'm going to do SSVR next year. I'm going. It's going to be a lifelong regret I did not go this year.
Awesome. We'll keep doing it. Don't worry. We'll keep doing it.
And Cosmo and Johnny had to take off, but they can be found at VRLA, or it's virtualrealityla.com. Just Google VRLA and you'll get what you need there. And a couple of VR chat announcements. Sunday is VR Chat, the biggest day to come meet up and hang out. There's a couple meetups that we have scheduled. There's one that's friendly for the European. It's 5 p.m. British summer time, which actually is noon Eastern time, so it's not exclusive to Europeans, but it's just a friendly time. And then our normal long-running U.S. time-friendly meetup starts at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We got some great people here. We're all very friendly, like to meet new people and show you around. And hopefully I will be streaming demos just like Cymatic Bruce and the good Reverend Kyle, who's directly in front of me. We're doing on Sundays. I want to help connect that back up and stream some stuff and show you my pretty little face and have some chats with you guys and keep Sundays a packed day. And if you're interested in running an event here in VR Chat, a movie night, a performance, or any kind of silly thing, or even not silly, something interesting, just reach out to me. Again, you can find me at guntersuniverse.com. There's a plethora of ways to contact me there. And I don't know if Olivier's in the house. I think he had an announcement. He may have left.
He's right behind you.
He's behind you.
Olivier. Olivier. Well,
he's sleeping.
Yeah, it's pretty late there. It's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, so he'll have to announce that later. Burning Man VR Camp Kickstarter is underway, as well as the Pixel Rift Kickstarter. Go check those out. Big thanks to everybody here, Karl, Peter, Shawn, Jeff and Jeffrey, and as well as Cosmo and Johnny. Man, it's really been great. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me.
Thanks for having us.
This was a fun one.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it, and we'll party down a little bit after this, so if anybody wants to stick around and talk with everybody here, that'd be great, and we'll
Party with
show
Mr.
you.
Whiskers.
Party with Mr. Whiskers. He definitely brings party toys. And we have cool rooms to go check out. So thanks to Kenny, or actually Bob, Cause and Effects here, running cameras. I really appreciate that. Thanks, Bob, for filling in.
You're most welcome.
Thanks, Bob.
So so thankful.
Oh,
and
Gunter, this has been driving me crazy. What is this video in front of us?
Oh, this is, normally there's videos. A lot of times the developers and folks here have stuff to show off. This is just a audio track that you can get on YouTube called Cyberpunk Music, and it plays for an hour and a half, and it's what I have playing regularly in this room here, and it's all done through a website called instasync.com, and that's a place that you would normally, like, you and your friend would watch a YouTube video. By plugging that YouTube video into InstaSync, you'd have your own, like, private room, and you'd watch it together, and it makes sure it's always synced up. And that's how I get sync video to work in VR Chat until all the support is built in for doing that natively. So I just have a video in there running constantly, so that's pretty cool. Oh, and that does remind me, one more quick announcement. Caleb in the audience made a cool little video that I haven't seen, so let's check that out, and then we'll take off.
Uh-oh. I made it
That's
just
what
for
was
you, buddy.
queued, yeah.
His continuing mission
I've lost
to
in my
seek out
country.
and connect with
Sorry.
devs and passionate enthusiasts.
So this is the inspiration for my room. It's Ghost in the Shell. Huh. Oh, awesome.
You can't see it, but I got the glow sticks out.
Hell yeah. Caleb is Reality Check VR on YouTube.
Welcome to Gunters Universe, episode 16, with me, Reality Check VR. Okay,
hey.
No, actually with a lot of other really cool people that are sitting around right there, and right there, and right there, and right there. Really cool people. Gunter, hello. Hey, buddy. How you doing? Hi.
Hello.
You're so cute. Oh, and in the audience, I recognize you. Never gonna forget you. And remember that one time we danced all night? You? Huh? You right there? Yeah?
That was so weird.
Quit looking at him, everybody. He doesn't like that. Alright, what you just saw right there was SAC Virtual Chat Room, and I'm sure Gunter knows all about it, but wow, that blew my mind when I saw that and remembered I actually have been there. I have memories of that place myself, which brings me to this quick topic, memories in VR. I guess I'll be honest with you. I'm going to Russia in a couple days, and it looks like I'm not getting back until the middle of August, but I've really enjoyed the memories that I've made with you guys here in Gunter's Universe, as well as VR chat as a whole. You guys are a great group of people and just a really fun community of VR enthusiasts. I really like being able to have this kind of a world where we can actually communicate with each other, even though we don't see each other in person, we actually get to have somewhat of a back and forth. It means a lot. Russia! And although it'll be a few weeks before I get to see you again, I guess I just wanted to say, спасибо. Приятно познакомиться. Until next time, до свидания. Пока. Can I actually wear the hat and the headset at the same time?
Dude, I'm so glad I remembered to do that.
Love you, buddy.
Almost
You had this
man. I love you too.
You had this queued this whole time, and you would play just a little bit of it by mistake, and I'm like, you're not closing the show until I see what this is.
Oh, thank you so much. Seriously, and Reality Check, you should have said something if I was going to forget.
I had
cool.
I had to go eat for about 30 minutes, so I wasn't sure if you played it or not, so I just was going to should be chill. But
cool. Thanks so much, and yeah, just met Caleb. Just wandered in here one night, didn't know what was going on, didn't know if there was some sort of pre-recorded thing that we're seeing in VR, or if it was school or whatnot, but he streamed it, and he just was like, what's going on? Oh, there's Master Chief over there, and just did great commentary. So if you go to his YouTube channel, you can check out that Reality Check VR, and you know, these are the kind of connections that we're all making. We're all big friends and good buddies.
Hopefully I'll get to come to one of these meetups and actually see some of you guys in person. I'm stuck in Missouri now, but once I get back, I'll be making the rounds. And great talk tonight. I've been on the stream as well, and everybody in the stream's really been liking it, so good one.
Nice.
Awesome.
Great.
All right, so yeah, and start one up yourself there. So in the next few weeks, I'll be talking with various people. I have a panel on pornography coming with Ella Darling and others. Hopefully I'll have the Pixel Rift crew here. Also have Ted Shilowitz. He's the futurist at 20th Century Fox. We've been chatting for a few months now. He's been real busy. Recently went to Comic-Con, and hopefully we'll find a time that works here. But he's pretty busy. We're going to do a panel on architecture. I'm going to get another panel together of all these great YouTubers. And of course, I'm always having favorite game developers from our community on, so pretty stoked about that. And that's it. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah. More cowbell.
Hey, Cuffs, careful with your big block. Personal space.
Yo, this simulate my personal space.
Awesome.
All right, Cuffs, begin the invasion.
All right, time to stretch the legs. Seriously, Cuffs. That sort of thing can make. So hold down E and click on a present, and Mr. Whiskers will delight you with a gift.
Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add to a biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service.
What's happening?
Resistance.
Just hold E to break out of your lover.
That is totally terrifying.
That's what was happening.
So yes, after a show gets crazy, pranks may come out. Oh my god.
Hey, Jeff. Shawn.
Yeah.
I'm pretty interested in the adult stuff myself, Gunter. I don't think there's enough talk about it, so I'm looking forward to that one.
Are you the
hey.
Nashville VR?
Hey, buddy.
Good. I was holding
Shit, I
down
can't
the
stop
space.
flying.
There
What
for a
is
second.
going on?
I guess I better
Sorry,
say
I can't hear.
goodbye. Thanks,
Thank
man.
Yeah, no problem. Are you the one that
I was,
hosted Nashville?
I was holding down the space bar on accident.
Enjoy that, man. You'll have fun.
Yeah.
Tom. I got some questions for you actually.
VR in
on
the
the
natural world?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
For sure, man.
Nashville VR or whatever?
Your avatar.
No, that was actually something called
that.
Paris.
Let's walk over here.
Is he in here?
Are you?
No.
I thought you were going to be in the U.S. this month.
Yeah,
How does
so
the show
that's
over? I'm
an
getting
announcement I wanted to
good.
make. I was
Yeah,
planning
it
to
It's,
I'd be happy to
do a
bring you
some.
Kickstarter and
we
launch
just
it
moved
at
Keep me
VR
grounded.
LA,
in Bellevue.
but
I'm
I'm not able to.
Hey, on Xbox
do that
controller, how do I
make
fly?
sense to do so
This is
anymore.
my Gardena.
The board.
You're still doing the Kickstarter though, right?
No.
Yep.
Because I've been looking at the different
It's quite
Kickstarter,
awesome. Did you make that yourself?
and
For
I'm
inviting.
struggling to get like 20k, 25k,
I had to
and
download it.
Just to let you guys know, if you
How hard would it be to get
if you want a separate conversation, you can come back here. And the audio.
It looks like there's a little more money being freed up for developers from Oculus and the other guys, right? What it sounds like.
No, I talked to Oculus and they're not gonna give me any funding either.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm gonna end the stream now.
Thanks
Thanks everyone who's watching, and we'll see you next time.
Like, it was a 300, 3,500 demo, and that